Welcome to our fourth edition of AD Interview. I am Andreas Stavrou, Energy Innovation Advisor at Romanian Energy Center, and today my dialogue partners are representatives from Research Center for Sustainable Energy, FOSS, one of the research unit of University of Cyprus. Therefore, I have the postdoctoral fellow, Mr. Stavrou. He's assistant manager at the Electricity Authority of Cyprus. So, Mr. Stavrou, welcome.
Thank you, Marta.
And we also have Mr. Vlachos, director of Cyprus Energy Agency. Mr. Vlachos, welcome.
Nice to meet you, Marta.
Based on your both expertise on the project objectives, I drafted a set of questions that, let's say, tackle both the training system and process and also the skilling and upskilling aspects of the energy sector. So, Mr. Stavrou, the digital and sustainable transformation in the energy sector are more and more visible. But based on your experience in transmission system owner department, how do you see these initial transformations?
I would say that the transformation in the transmission substation technology has been continuous for about 30 years now. I remember when we started to introduce remote terminal units in the 90s, in order to be able to send statuses of the substation components, the breakers, isolators, switches, etc., to the control center, we had to connect wires from all these devices and from all the relays in order to get operation and status signals to the so-called RTUs. And for the measurements, we needed to install transducers in every device. This was a big start towards automation, of course. Later on in the 2000s, around there, all this information started to be collected locally on each bay by devices like bay controllers, and we started to have communication networks of these devices. We had communication of bay controllers and protection relays in the substations, and all the information was exchanged over a network. The bad thing at that time was that the fact that each manufacturer was using its own components and its own communication protocols. And now, about 20 years later, we know that these protocols are not supported by manufacturers anymore, and we need to upgrade the whole automation system. But digitalization had already started at that time. It was implemented, the relays and bay controllers were all digital. Even the RTUs at that time were just gateways of information. And that was parameterized in order to send all the required information to the control center. What we see now is a step further. All the sensors are giving the measurement information to the so-called merging units. And when we say sensors, that includes current and voltage transformers that are critical for system protection. So the merging units get the information from the sensors, they convert it to digital information, they broadcast it to the network for all the devices to get it if they need it. So information networks become a critical part of system protection, and all signals must be thoroughly tested for their correctness. The very positive improvement, I would say, since then, is that all manufacturers now use the IEC 61850 communication protocol. It is possible to use devices of different manufacturers on the same network. This is a great step towards digital substations. New products come out every day, and this is a very, very interesting time. Regarding the sustainable transformation part of your question. I think the big change that is emerging in relation to transmission system is the use of reactive power compensation with the use of FOSS controllers. Instead of traditionally expanding and reinforcing the transmission system, and as you know, the spreading more transmission lines on people's land without many objections from communities, from activists and all these things, we should use power electronic compensators to smartly reroute the power on the system. You know, renewable energy is volatile, and loading of different system components varies with time, varies with wind speed, varies with solar irradiance. Therefore, compensation should be adaptive and should be dynamic. And I'm happy to see that around the world, utilities are taking this path. Series compensation, which we call SSSC, the static synchronous series compensation nowadays, is even offered in modular form. And this is the thing that gives flexibility to the system owner.
Mm-hmm. And considering your answer, can you tell us a few, I don't know, abilities and competencies that you think the new people that will work in this specific area will have to improve or to acquire?
People who work in the transmission system needed and still need to understand the operation of the power system. And I would say each of the devices too. Mm-hmm. Also, people that parameterize protection, for example, devices need to understand the fault behavior of the system in detail. Planners also need to understand all the component characteristics, including the new ones, renewable energy sources, power electronic converters, storage facilities, etc. So in order to correctly model them and have a clear picture of the system state. So now, in addition to all this, as I mentioned in my previous answer to your question, a lot of our new work needs information technology expertise. We need to have people properly trained to set up all these networks, parameterize them, do troubleshooting with it, servicing it. Also, all the information gathered by this system is very, very valuable for operation and planning purposes. So people need to understand big data analytics and be able to use them. So you do understand that it is not possible to just employ twice as many people in order to do this whole spectrum of activities and get the system running. So I think the approach here must be, we need to train our power system and protection engineers and technicians in the new digital technology. We need to continuously engage them with ICT and digital systems, data analytics. Surely we need to hire new experts with specializations related to these new technologies that emerge with power systems. They would be bringing in the knowledge we lack, and in turn we would train them in power systems and protection systems, which we know very well. So the correct mixture of new people in the business is the key to tomorrow's success. But on the other hand, universities need to adapt their degree programs to meet the industry needs and be able to prepare graduates to be able to understand at least the basics of all the subjects that I mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm. A lot of challenges, but let's hope that we will face them well.
Yes, sure.
Mr. Vlachos, As the sustainable energy needs also local solutions and not only European, let's say, objectives, what have to do the local authorities in the sustainable energy planning process?
Thank you, Marta, with this question. So local authorities are recognized as important partners in the implementation of structural reforms and investments, such as those mentioned by Mr. Stavrou earlier, in order to accelerate the transition to green economy. Many of the local authorities have already committed to undertake actions in order to become just, inclusive, decarbonized and climate resilient cities governed by the principles of sustainability. So now we're talking about a huge crisis like the one of the magnitude of climate change, which calls for action. And so local authorities in Cyprus, as well as many other local authorities across Europe and the world, they work together in order to engage their citizens, engage the stakeholders and other supporters in order to deliver and implement successfully sustainable energy and climate action plans. Those action plans will be the roadmap for the local authorities towards their 2030 sustainability targets and beyond. So what do we expect from these local authorities and their actions? More specifically, they include climate mitigation and adaptation actions, such as policies, investments, incentives, and activities to promote climate neutrality and adaptation. So, going back to the question mentioned earlier to Mr. Stavrou, also the local authorities will need to acquire more skills necessary to meet those objectives and those commitments. When they are in capacity to acquire these skills, they will be able also to commit to join the Covenant of Mayors, the world's largest movement for climate and energy actions, bringing together local and regional authorities in a voluntary commitment to overcome and successfully implement the EU's climate and energy objectives in their territory.
Mm-hmm. And going a little bit further in your response, considering the green skills, what are the green skills needed in order to implement this sustainable energy planning, let's say?
Yeah, of course, there are a number of horizontal skills which are considered particularly important and necessary for all green-related professions, regardless of the sector of employment. Mm-hmm. Those are very well known, like technical skills, analytical, managerial, communication, and also skills related with establishing relationships and creativeness. In addition to those horizontal skills, more specifically for sustainable energy plans implementation, local authorities and energy professionals should know and can precisely define, monitor, and verify sustainable energy and climate actions. And also, they need to improve their adaptive capacity to address the new challenges that they expect to face. With our role as local authorities technical supporter and training provider here at the Cyprus Energy Agency, we also aim to enhance the climate crisis reaction capacity and the climate crisis preparedness of the local authorities, equipping them with the knowledge and the ability to face the economic, social, and environmental shocks and persistent structural changes in a fair, sustainable, and an inclusive way.
Mm-hmm. I understand. So now I want to shift a little bit the focus, and I want to ask you about your hobbies. So, Mr. Stavrou, what are you doing when you are not working? I think that you have to unmute. Your microphone is muted.
Oh, so sorry.
No problem.
This is very interesting. You know, Marta, I was born and grew up on an island in the Mediterranean, and I just love the sea and everything to do with the sea. Walking by it, I enjoy swimming in it. I love sunrises, sunset by the sea, just everything. I live just outside of the capital of Cyprus, Nicosia, and I can be by the beach in 25, 30 minutes. So,
Wow.
Or if I prefer some, let's say, specific golden sand beach, maybe 50 minutes drive. Mm-hmm. So the good thing is that the summer season starts in Cyprus in April and continues up until October, or sometimes November. So I have plenty of time over the year to enjoy the sea. In what free time remains, I like reading. Recently, I am interested in the findings of neuroscience, to be honest, and the way the mind works and a lot of things around it. So those are currently my interests.
I have to say that I envy you for all that summertime. It's a lot of time, a lot of months, so I envy you. Mr. Vlachos, what are you doing when you are not working?
Yeah, as I live and work on the same island, Cyprus, as Andreas does, I also really like being outside and spending time in the nature, but not only in the coastal areas, but also in the mountainous areas, because both of them offer unique experiences and relaxing time to enjoy the evening times or the weekends when business are quite silent, let's say.
Mm-hmm. So to conclude this meeting, I just want to thank you both for participating.
We thank you for the opportunity.
And also thank you all for watching us. Please feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel and see you next time.